I was staying at this house in Manila, and it was a full house. I mean, it had about 5 bedrooms, and each bedroom was occupied with multiple people. Now, I'm not entirely sure why, with all these people, they required a nanny, much less two nannies. I mean, I am very happy that they did have nannies because it was just such a culture shock getting to know these nannies. As someone coming from the West, being confronted with these two nannies who were living in utter poverty, it was such a culture clash. But it was two meetings that I will never forget. So in this video, we're going to talk about these two nannies. So one of the nannies was 13. Yes, you heard that right, 13. We're going to get into the details of this. And the other nanny was 30 years old. Okay, so we got 13 and we got 30. And this is a story of basically being born into complete and utter poverty. We're going to get into this. So the girlfriend and myself arrived at this house. It was a long flight, okay? And there were two nannies at the house on day one. Honestly, I mean, I didn't pay too much attention to them at first because there just always seemed to be people around the house. It was kind of like an open house. I mean, neighbors came in, friends, family. I mean, people just came in and out. So I didn't really pay too much attention to who was coming in and out. So anyway, one day I asked why these two people were sleeping in this sort of converted sorry store. Basically, these two were sleeping outside. So anyway, it turns out that these were the nannies. I said, "Oh, okay, so what do they do here?" They clean, they do the laundry, my girlfriend's telling me. They get food at the market, etc. I said, okay, that's cool. This was the first introduction to people on what I call the other side, as half the world is born into this life. And in the West, I mean, we don't even know. We don't realize it. We don't think about it. So on this particular visit, we were there for about 3 months. And I learned a lot about these nannies' situations and their lives because I've always been curious about the lives of others and why people do what they do. So this was kind of the ultimate. It was not like a normal person. This was like the people on the other side. Now, at this time in my life, I'm a teenager pretty much. I mean, the first time I've ever thought about this kind of situation or been confronted with this. So here we are in the house with two nannies who are obviously, born into poverty. Born into poverty. If they're going to work 24 hours a day for 22,000 pesos a month or $40, of course they get free housing and food, and the job is pretty much what they'd be doing if they had just stayed home. Cooking, cleaning, this kind of stuff. So let's talk about the 30-year-old lady first, okay? And we'll talk about the 13-year-old afterwards. So admittedly, look, I'm going to lay it on the line here, guys. She was a beautiful looking woman, very sexy, okay? She had thick, curly black hair. She had dimples. Now, she had a great pair of knockers, if you know what I'm saying. Big and thick, okay? And a tight waist, and considering she basically just dressed in the cheapest clothes possible, man, it worked for her, okay? That sort of added to her, to be honest with you. This girl could just wear whatever she wanted. Now, this babe, okay, I hate to repeat myself, born into utter poverty. Complete poverty out in the province. She was born in Ilagan, okay, which I do remember the name of her city because it sounds like Ilagan in Mindanao. So how did she get this particular job at the house? Okay, this is what I'm wondering. I always look for the roots of something, okay? So how did she get this job at the house after, she's hours and hours on a bus ride away? So it turns out this is how she got the job. She knew a recruiter in her area, what's called a barangay, okay? So she knew a recruiter there. So she went to this recruiter's house, and this recruiter, a woman, worked specifically at placing nannies in Manila. So she was this recruiter was basically a subcontractor for the main business that was located in Manila. So if a house in Manila wanted a nanny, they would contact this recruiting agency, and this this agency had scouts throughout Luzon, okay, looking for potential nannies. Now, okay, that's how she got the job. Now, the second question I got is, why did she want to work a month for 2,000 pesos? Okay, so let's talk about why did she want this particular job? Okay, so let me tell you her situation. This was 20 years ago. She was married. Okay, this babe was married or live-in partner kind of situation. I can't remember, but she got a guy. She had this guy. Okay, but the husband, had a workplace accident of which, I mean, I don't know the exact the details of his accident, but he had no work and therefore he had no pesos. Okay, the guy, I know he did work on a rice farm. I don't know exactly what his accident was. So this nanny position is the only way that this lady had to make any kind of money, and she did. She did. She made 2,000. She sent every peso back home to her hubby and daughter. So as I know, she had one daughter. That's all I ever heard of. She might have had more kids, but as I know, she had this one daughter. This daughter was 15 at the time. I remember that specifically. So you do the math of how old this babe was when she actually got prego. So this family in the province lived off of her 2,000 pesos, okay? So my girlfriend's family paid the recruiter, basically that's how she got there. So they paid the recruiter some upfront fee, and the recruiter bought her a bus ticket and the directions to the house, and she just showed up. So this was the first time that she had traveled outside of her village. I'm sure being in Manila was a very strange setting for her, and she was probably just happy to have a place to call home, really. Because I'm sure she had culture shock when she arrived in Manila at the bus terminal. Then she arrived at the house, and she could sort of let her hair down. She could sort of relax now. She had a place to lay, basically. So, I mean, she started sweeping the floor and doing the laundry, etc. right away on day one. I remember one time, three of us were in the TV room watching TV. So it was me, the brother, and this particular lady, okay? And she was asking the brother questions about me, like, where am I from? And the very awkward question, how old are you? Which, I got asked a lot when I arrived, and I never answered the question because I was told, don't answer that question, because my girlfriend, she was older than I was. Anyway, the girlfriend didn't want her family to know my real age because I was younger than her. I said in the last vid she was 15. Actually, I did the math. I remember she was 13. She was 13 years older than me. So when we met, I was 19. Yeah, she must have been 32. So the conclusion with this lady is that one day she asked for 500 peso advance so that she could buy her daughter a dress for some kind of event back home in her province. So the family gave her the 500 peso advance on her salary, and this lady, she took off. So the story is that she was staying with a friend in Manila after she left, okay? And apparently what happened was she was offered a higher paying job. So she left without quitting, okay? She just left, midnight run kind of thing. So this job didn't pan out. So she went to her friend's house, and that job she was promised didn't pan out. So she called back to my girlfriend's house and asked if she could come back to the house, and the girlfriend's family, they said no. So that was the very last I ever heard from her. And I do really wonder what she did after that, what her story was from that time, because it must have been a very low time for her. I mean, her family is depending on her for food, and basically she lost her job. So let's talk about the other nanny here. The other nanny, as I mentioned, she was only 13, okay? Now, obviously, this is too young. It is too young to be working in the Phils. So at the time, it may be, this is at the time. It may be different today, but this is what I was told, okay? So at this time, 15 was the minimum age to be a nanny specifically, okay? You could be a nanny at 15. So 15 could not work in a Jollibee style place, okay, but they could work like most likely like selling vegetables or other kind of jobs, low-level jobs. Anyway, she was not 15. This girl was not 15. She was 13. So how did she get this job if she's underage? So basically, she had smudged her paperwork, for lack of a better term, okay? She had smudged her paperwork. I hope you don't ask me how she did that, because really, I never asked. Okay, so anyway, so she arrived at the house prior to me arriving. She was there when I arrived. So the first question the family asked her is, "How old are you?" She was teeny tiny, right? So she said she is 15. They said, "I don't think you're 15. Can I see your ID?" So what happens? I mean, she starts crying and says she's sorry, but she doesn't know what to do. So I mean, it's a bit heartbreaking, this situation. I mean, what was happening? What happened was that her dad forced her to quit school. Okay, this is up. She's way up in the province, impoverished. Okay, her dad asked her to quit school, and the dad asked her to go to Manila and get a job, support the family. So this 13-year-old girl just went along with it. When she arrived at the house of my girlfriend's, she was basically destitute. Okay, so the family just took her in, and they even offered to send her to school. However, she never went to school, even in the province out there. She had no interest in starting school. So she's 13. If she started school, she would have been in grade 1. So she turned down that offer. All she wanted to do was to make a salary and send that salary home to her family. That's all she wanted to do. So I had a few arguments with my girlfriend regarding this particular girl, because my girlfriend wanted her to work, And I said, "Why don't you just leave her alone? Like, she's bothering her to do why she's not sweeping, why she's not cooking, this kind of thing." Now, my girlfriend, little did I realize at the time, I was too young. I was just, myself, I was just going through life. I was just going along with life. But my girlfriend was a selfish biatch, okay? Looking back on it, I realized later what a selfish biatch she was. Like, for example, I remember we were at home. We were in Vancouver, and she said one time, she said, "My family misses me." And I said to her, that we're eating dinner at this time, okay? She says, "My family misses me." I said, "Well, yeah, don't you miss them?" And she says, "Well, I'm the one who's away." Like, you understand? Like, that's just her attitude. It's all about me, 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 like, she can't admit she misses them. No, that's not important. What's important is how someone feels about her. Anyway, that's enough about that. I mean, this girlfriend and I are in there at the time. We're in Manila at the time. She's just complaining about these nannies not doing enough work. But for some reason, especially the 13-year-old, okay? She even said the 13-year-old doesn't really want to be here. I said, "Well, hell, of course she doesn't want to be here. She's 13. She wants to be at home playing with her friends, like all other 13-year-olds, in a environment that she's familiar with." Basically, I'm saying, like, would you just lean off this girl a little bit, Like, it's kind of a sticky situation. You brought her down here to work. You find out she's 13. It's kind of heartbreaking that you don't want to send her home, or you don't know what to do. So anyway, you just keep her, right? Anyway, this girl was dealt the ultimate bad hand in poker. And this happens, some people are just dealt bad hands. This girl was one of them. Imagine, not only that you have a poverty-stricken family, but you're forced by your own family to go to a foreign land, in this case, Manila, and find work and then send home all the money that you earned. I mean, imagine that at 13. So, I did see the dad before. So what happened was I met this 13-year-old's dad. He was in Manila. I'm not sure what he was doing in Manila. I'm not sure, but he came to the house, okay? He had one request, okay? He asked for an advance on his daughter's salary. Now, this guy, he didn't even hug his daughter. There was no sort of like, I just don't understand, like, coming from a family that might hug each other every once in a while, anyway, this guy, he arrived at the house. He asked for an advance on his daughter's salary so that he could get a bus ticket back home. Now, if it were today, like, now I'm 44. I mean, I'd have talked to the dad, because I'm fascinated by these people and how they manage to survive. it feels like they always seem to manage to not only like keep their heads above water, but to have a bunch of kids in the process. I mean, how do they do it? There's one additional thing to say in regard to this 13-year-old, okay? Now, it is difficult to talk about this without me looking bad, okay? But I'm just gonna lay it on the line here, okay? I'm just gonna spill the beans, okay? And I'm just gonna let the cards settle where they may, okay? Look. This 13-year-old girl, she would give me the eye, okay? Now, look. Let me tell the story here, guys, okay? This little girl, she'd give me the eye. Now, remember, I'm still a teenager myself at the time. I'm like 19, 20 at the time, okay? But she'd give me the eye. The corner of her mouth had a smile like, okay, look, this would happen. This happened because, we'd cross paths in the house. Like she saw me as a way out of this. This is what I'm thinking, okay? Like she saw me, okay? She couldn't even speak English. She couldn't speak my language. She saw me and she thought, this is a ticket out of this mess that I've been dealt. Now, at least that is what I took from this situation, okay? Now she knows I'm there with my GF, but I was thinking about this later in life, this situation. Why was a girl who was 13 years old looking at a foreigner who was nearly 20 and there with his GF, okay? Why was she doing this? If this girl had been born in the West, okay, she wouldn't have given me this particular look. There's no way. What I think is that from the perspective of where she's coming from, she is in survival mode, okay? Now, I wish I could understand what life is like through the eyes of a girl in this situation, especially a 13-year-old girl in this specific situation. Now, this was 20 years ago. Now, I would give anything in order to find this girl just so I could talk to her and understand her life. Now, she'd be 33 today. She's from Isabela province in Luzon, okay? Same as the other one. I don't know her specific city, but anyway, she's from Isabela province. I'm sure there are many people in her situation in Isabela province today. It would be an honor for me and a passion to document the lives of these, what I consider the most interesting people in the world. That's what I hope to do in the future. Of course, there is a slight problem of having to find a person who does not mind being documented, but it's not impossible to do. So let's try to not take for granted that we in the Western world are born with circumstances that allow us a certain level of dignity, okay? Now, if you are in the Philippines, these people who have nothing are all around, okay? Now, often they're hidden. You won't come across them, but they are there. We won't see them, but I'm going to find them and show them to the world, if they're willing, because this is a passion of mine. That is the end goal of this channel. I want to show the wealthier half of the world what the world is like for the lower half. Because when we're born in America or Canada or Australia, we can't see it. We can't even fathom it because it's just not in our sight. It's just not part of our reality. Guys, please subscribe and join me on this journey. When I get to the Philippines, this will be the ultimate goal. It's a passion of mine to understand these people. Please join me, and my friends, there's more to come. Please subscribe. I will see you, my friends, on the very next video.